Welcome back to Omoshiroi Recap. Today, I will recap Akashic Records of Bastard Magic Instructor. The story begins with the Magic Academy of the Alzano Empire. For 400 years, this academy was the highest educational place for studying magic. A student named Rumia temporarily lives in her friend Sistine's house. They went to the academy together. Suddenly, they met a man named Glenn. Sistine accidentally used whirlwind magic to stop it from crashing into them. Glenn quickly apologized to them when he fell. Then he felt like he had met Rumia, so he wanted to confirm it by touching her body. As a result, Sistine accused him of being a pervert and was once again chased away by her using whirlwind magic. A few moments later, the students were waiting for the arrival of a new teacher in their class. Unexpectedly, Glenn was the new teacher in their class. Glenn is very lazy. He has no enthusiasm for his work, so he asks them to study independently. It annoyed Sistine. She forced him to teach them seriously. Despite having already received a furious blow from Sistine, he reluctantly began his lesson despite his messy handwriting. When the bell rang, Glenn was the first to leave the classroom. Professor Celica asked Glenn to become a temporary teacher at the Magic Academy. Even though Glenn tried to refuse it by begging because he didn't want to work, Celica threatened him with lethal magic. Glenn accidentally entered the women's changing room. He was so different from the others that he didn't panic or turn his head directly but instead tried to remember the scene. In the next lesson, Glenn kept asking them to study independently. He couldn't even answer the students' questions and asked them to find the answers themselves. Sistine's patience had run out. As a distinguished noble, she had much influence in the academy. If Glenn weren't serious about teaching them, Sistine would have asked her father to fire him. Hearing that made Glenn very happy. He hoped to be fired as soon as possible. Sistine challenged Glenn to a duel, and the loser had to obey the victor's word. When he saw Sistine, Glenn remembered the figure of a white-haired woman similar to her. Glenn agreed to the challenge but asked Sistine only to use shock bolt magic. They all thought that Glenn would win the duel, but unexpectedly, Sistine could beat him so easily. Glenn didn't want to accept his defeat and thought the fight ended in a draw, so he immediately left. The next day, Glenn still came to class very relaxed. Then Sistine explained that magic was fantastic and she was very proud of it. Meanwhile, from Glenn's point of view, he thought that magic was very useful for killing someone. Magic can kill 10 people more easily. Sistine disapproved of Glenn and immediately slapped him in annoyance. After he argued with Sistine, Glenn felt guilty and wanted to quit teaching immediately. When he wanted to go to Celica to apologize, he saw Rumia trying to learn a magic circle. Glenn immediately went to see her. Knowing her magic circle was not working, Glenn tried to help her. So Rumia succeeded in activating her magic circle. At the same time, Glenn was brought back by his smile to the time when he first learned sorcery. Rumia says that she wants to learn more about magic to benefit humanity. Rumia also says that she was hunted by an evil witch 3 years ago because of her family situation. However, she is saved by an unknown justice wizard just as she is about to be killed. Someday Rumia would like to thank that witch and wish to learn magic properly to repay his kindness. Then Rumia suggested that Glenn apologize to Sistine, as magic was the only remaining link between Sistine and her grandfather. She intends to fulfill her grandfather's last wish to reveal the secret of the mysteries of the Sky Castle. The next day, Glenn apologized to her in front of the class. Glenn also started to seriously teach them by showing his prowess in mastering magic. His way of teaching was unique. Spells wouldn't limit the highest level of magic, so he advised students to practice not relying on spells. Seeing that surprised all the students, they also started to admire Glenn. A few days later, he topped the list of popular teachers. Even Celica was pleased to know that. Glenn soon got used to his life as a teacher, but he never expected to be attacked while walking. Glenn was very perceptive and knew that someone was after him. On the other hand, two members of an evil organization enter the classroom. Their goal is to catch Rumia. Sistine taunted them and was dragged into the matter as a result. They immediately took Rumia somewhere while Sistine was taken to an empty room, and the man intended to rape her there. Suddenly Glenn came to save her. Glenn's skill called Stupid World, which can nullify the activation of all magic. Even though he looks useless, he is powerful and has defeated other baddies who tried to attack him. Then he used the Royal Army's martial arts to defeat his opponent. Magic! Glenn immediately contacted Celica with a communication bracelet to inform her that the academy had been attacked by an evil organization taking students hostage. He also explained that there was no way they could penetrate the academy's magical security, so there were insiders from the academy who were helping the evil organization. Therefore, Glenn asked Celica to return immediately. Unfortunately, she couldn't because the academy's teleportation circle had been destroyed. So Glenn was forced to take the responsibility of looking after the students. Suddenly, an army of bone golems appeared to attack them. Glenn tried to hit it, but unfortunately, the monster was tough. Therefore, he asked Sistine to use her specialty magic to stop them while Glenn used the powerful attack magic to exterminate the bone golems. Even though their combination attack was successful, it left him exhausted. After the Bone Golem army was defeated, another enemy appeared to meet them. He asked if Sistine could use the spell Force Magic to immobilize the sword. Since Sistine was confident she could do it, Glenn directly pushed her down and ordered her to find an opportunity to ambush him. Besides that, Glenn was very clever. He could force his opponent to choose two deaths quickly. Unfortunately, his opponent managed to fend off the attack, and he admitted that Glenn was powerful. As the blade pierced his body, Glenn and Sistine combined their magic to seal the blade away. After that, he quickly took the sword and stabbed his opponent to death. As a result of being seriously injured, causing him to lose consciousness, Sistine tried to nurse him by using all her magic power to heal Glenn. Accidentally falling asleep until the afternoon, Glenn realized that the mastermind behind it all was in the tallest tower around the academy. He immediately headed there and found Rumia being watched by a teacher named Huey. He had set up a teleportation circle to send Rumia to the organization headquarters in another 10 minutes. If Glenn tried to kill him, Rumia would die from the explosion magic cast in that place. Glenn had no choice but to use all his magic power to erase the 5 layers of the teleportation circle. Despite successfully clearing 4 teleportation circles, he ran out of magic energy and started losing consciousness. Rumia tries to get past the barrier and uses her unique ability, which is an amplifier, to increase Glenn's power. Ultimately, the teleportation circle was successfully dispelled, and Glenn immediately beat his opponent without mercy. After the crisis at the academy was over, Celica revealed that Rumia's real identity was the princess of the Alzano Empire, and had a unique ability that made the evil organization want her power. On the other hand, the queen or Rumia's mother intends to attend the magic tournament of the Alzano Empire Magic Academy. Her goal is to confirm whether Rumia is happy with her current life. The magic tournament is about to start, and Glenn is serious enough to win. He arranges events for each student according to their strengths, and he is trying so hard because he wants to win the prize money that Glenn desperately needs to survive. While wanting to practice, Glenn got into trouble with Class 1, and a dispute with a teacher named Hallie forced Glenn to leave the practice field. Because Hallie looked down on his students, Glenn was so angry, he bet 3 months' salary on his class victory. Hallie is very sure of himself and willing to bet on the same. Glenn must actively prepare his students to win the competition to save his finances. The magic tournament officially started, and the Class 2 students managed to win the championship in every match. Seeing the results were better than he expected made Glenn feel happy that his finances could be saved if it went on. Rumia participated in the mental defense competition. A magic professor would test their mental defense. Many participants withdrew when the competition took place, and only Rumia and Jail were left last year's champions. To end it, the professor started using mind break magic, which is the most complex and dangerous. Hooray! Even though she had managed to defend herself, Rumia had already reached her limit to the point of having difficulty standing. Seeing that Glenn wanted Rumia to withdraw from the competition for safety's sake immediately, unexpectedly Jail fainted while standing. Even though Rumia backed off, she managed to withstand Mind Break earlier to win the mental defense competition. The queen was grateful to see Rumia smiling happily and having good friends with good teachers. At that time, Celica suggested she meet Rumia to mend her relationship with her daughter Rumia. Glenn was starving because he had no money to buy food, hence he enviously observed other people's lunches. When Lin came to see him, she was not confident enough to compete in the transmutation contest and asked to be replaced by another student. Glenn gave Lin some advice to help her become more confident. Glenn also assumed Rumia's form and explained the self-illusion magic to her, so Lin decided to try hard to win with Glenn's support. At the same time, Glenn is mistaken for Rumia by Sistine, who wants to share a meal with her. The hungry Glenn naturally accepted the food, but Rumia appeared before him. Sistine made the food for Glenn but was too shy to say it. Hence Rumia took it and gave it directly to Glenn. He was so satisfied after eating the sandwich and didn't realize that Sistine had made it for him. After they finished, suddenly, the queen came to them. It turned out that Celica had used her magic on the queen so she could meet Rumia. The queen asked her many things and was grateful to be reunited with Rumia. Unfortunately, Rumia refused to acknowledge herself as a princess, and Rumia quickly left the venue. The queen was depressed because Rumia no longer considered her a mother. After that, Glenn met Rumia in a park. She was at a loss as to what to do and was very afraid that she would choose the wrong option. In his opinion, humans like them, whatever their choices, will always have regrets. Therefore, Rumia had to follow her heart. If she chose a step according to her heart's content, it would hurt less to have the same regret. Hearing that, Rumia wanted to meet the queen one more time and asked Glenn to accompany her. Suddenly, the royal soldiers accuse Rumia of plotting to kill the queen. Therefore, they intend to catch Rumia and immediately execute her there. Of course, Glenn wouldn't allow that. He immediately saved Rumia and hid somewhere. Glenn tries to ask Celica for help, but unfortunately, she also can't do anything because the enemy has threatened her. She wants Glenn to find a way to meet the queen because he is the only person who can solve the problem. Finished talking with Celica, and suddenly someone attacked them there. It turned out that they were Glenn's former co-workers from the Special Magic Division of the Imperial Court, namely Albert with Real. Albert explained that now things were complicated. The royal guards were observing the queen, even Celica couldn't do anything about it. Glenn decides to team up with them to save the queen. Glenn and Rumia use self-illusion magic to transform into Albert and Real. They also returned to meet Class 2, who was competing and guided them to win the magic tournament so he could meet the queen. During the transmutation contest of Class 1 students, he turned into a dragon and got the highest score. Even though Lin initially felt insecure, hearing Glenn's words excited her again. She did a goddess transformation in front of everyone, earning her a perfect score in the competition. In the final round of Sistine's duel with the Class 1 students, she displayed overwhelming magic power and managed to defeat her opponent. In the end, the magic tournament was won by Class 2. Glenn and Rumia met the queen on stage during the awards ceremony while releasing self-illusion magic. Meanwhile, Celica immediately made a separation barrier so the royal soldiers would not attack them. The queen suddenly came under the clutches of the guards and was forced to decide to kill Rumia. While she didn't want to kill Rumia, Glenn realized that the jewelry worn by the queen was a conditional curse. When Glenn approached her, the queen immediately released the jewelry. It turned out that Glenn had used the Fool's Arcana because all the magic around him would disappear. After removing the necklace, the queen expressed her true feelings to Rumia. She regretted hurting Rumia as she had always loved her. On the other hand, Albert discovers that the queen's servant is the mastermind of all that. She is named Alina and comes from an evil organization. She used teleportation to escape from them. A few days later, Glenn gave Sistine special training so she could protect Rumia. She had to learn military magic and improve her physical fitness by practicing hand-to-hand combat. Besides that, Real, who is in the Imperial Court, is assigned to guard Rumia secretly. She has become a transfer student and will be in Class 2. When introducing themselves, the male students felt Real was adorable and intended to approach her. Unfortunately, they were all rejected because Real already had Glenn.
グレンは私のすべて。私はグレンのために生きると決めた。
Real has an innocent mind and unstable emotions. That's why Albert warned Glenn to be careful of Real. Then Glenn took the students on a field trip. He chose an alchemical research site on the island of Cineria, which had a beach famous for its beauty.
美少女たちの水着はあらゆるものに優先する。たとえここが戦場のど真ん中だったとしても。
Glenn was pleased to see his female students wearing swimsuits. They all had fun together playing beach volleyball until the afternoon. At night, the male students planned to carry out their secret mission to peek at the girls' room. But Glenn finds out about their plan and tries to stop them. So there was a fierce battle between them, but Glenn defeated them alone. After that, Real was brought to the beach by Sistine with Rumia. They had a great time there, and Glenn was happy to see them being friends. Real didn't realize that not like Sistine being with Rumia, she was furious because she believed they had snatched Glenn. The next day, Real fought with Sistine and Rumia. She didn't want to be friends anymore. Glenn explains that Real is a relatively younger mental age than them. Glenn will be responsible for looking for her and hopes not to make a fuss. Albert noticed that someone had approached Real. He wanted to save her, but suddenly Alina stopped him. Even though she was injured from Albert's attack, Alina could heal herself very quickly. Albert also ensured she was dangerous. Because of that, he intended to kill her there. On the other hand, Glenn managed to protect Real from someone who disguised himself as Real's older brother. Unfortunately, he didn't expect that Real would attack him. It made Glenn lose consciousness. Albert also felt irritated because Glenn did not heed his previous warning. Not only stabbed Glenn but also kidnapped Rumia. Sistine tried to fight back but was too scared to use magic. After Real took Rumia, Albert brought Glenn to that place. Glenn was severely injured, and Albert needed Sistine's help as healing him required a lot of magic power. Albert immediately set up a magic circle to activate the reviver magic, while Sistine gave Glenn artificial respiration. They managed to help Glenn regain consciousness, while Sistine fell asleep due to using too much magic. Albert explained that the leader had devised a plan to use Rumia as bait to destroy the evil organization that was hiding behind it. Of course, Glenn was very upset because they had involved Rumia in the matter. Albert also admitted that he was cruel and would be responsible for saving Rumia, so they went together to the enemy base. Luckily, Albert had installed a magic tracker on Alina's body, making it easy to find the whereabouts of the evil organization. But one member disguised himself as Real's brother and ordered him to kill Glenn. Meanwhile, Glenn used gravity magic to lock it. After that, Glenn used his gun to free Rumia from there and hit the evil organization members. It is then revealed that Real is a human copy of a girl, and her brother is named Shin. Shin betrays the evil organization, gives Glenn access to inside knowledge, and requests him to save his friends. Unfortunately, Glenn was too late, and Shin and his younger sister died, but a clone girl survived. Knowing that she was just a doll made her very depressed. Glenn tried to explain to her that she was not a doll. She took the initiative to eliminate all those clones to protect the people precious to her. In the end, they managed to defeat the members of the evil organization and complete their mission to save Rumia. By the time Real was back with them, Sistine and Rumia had forgiven her mistake and started being friends again. A few days later, a famous professor named Leos came to teach at the Magic Academy. He also said that he was Sistine's fiancé, whereas Sistine thought the engagement was just a joke they had when they were children. Leos has many advantages. Besides his good looks, he is also an expert in teaching students about military magic. After class, Leos took Sistine to a park, and he immediately confessed his love to Sistine. But Sistine refused because she wanted to focus on researching the mystery of the Sky Castle according to her promise to her grandfather. Leos advised her to give up her dream because it was impossible. Instead of wasting time doing that, Leos advised her to assist him in researching military magic. Hearing Leos belittle Sistine's dreams annoyed Glenn, and he immediately advised him. To get rid of Leos, Sistine purposely said that she was already a couple with Glenn. Glenn joined in on the charade and advised Leos to give up.
可愛い白猫ちゃんは夕べも俺のベッドで
Annoyed at how stubborn Leos is, Glenn challenges him to a duel in a class battle. They instructed students from Class 2 and Class 4 to conduct a magic competition in terms of combat. Glenn remembered a woman he loved before named Sarah. Then Albert told him that angel dust had been smuggled into the city. That object was hazardous, and Glenn and the others had eliminated angel dust in last year's incident. Even Sarah had to sacrifice her life in this incident. Therefore, Glenn didn't want that incident to happen again and was determined to protect Sistine. The day of the battle has arrived, and Leos is confident he will win. Meanwhile, Glenn encouraged his students to marry Sistine and become wealthy.
よーしお前ら俺が逆玉に乗れるよう力を貸してくれよな
Class 4 is stronger when the battle starts than Class 2. They use 3 people per group to balance attack and defense. However, Glenn of the Special Magic Division excelled at teamwork. He adjusted the abilities of his disciples by making 2 people in each group. So Class 2 managed to turn things around. Not only that, but Glenn also set a trap in the forest. The guerrilla tactics succeeded in driving back Class 4 students. In the end, the battle time was up, and there were no winners, so the battle ended in a draw. Leos did not accept this result. He decided to challenge Glenn to one-on-one. Glenn also accepted the challenge. Then Sistine asked why the typically lazy Glenn had suddenly accepted the duel challenge. He explained that Sistine reminded him of his former friend Sarah. Ever since Glenn was young, he wanted to be a wizard of justice, but he found that being a wizard wasn't as good as he thought. He kept killing evil wizards until his hands were covered in blood. Ever since then, he hated magic. But if Sarah doesn't always support him, maybe Glenn will choose to give up. Unfortunately, he made a mistake during the mission, which resulted in Sarah's death. It hit him hard, and he quit Imperial Court Magicians. Leos suddenly appears. He already knows Glenn has a violent and bloody past. That made Glenn angry, and he immediately attacked him. It was unexpected that Leos's fighting ability was so strong he could beat him without magic.
帝国式軍隊格闘術バカだあなたに対しては
Feeling unable to win, Glenn decides to leave there. Leos forced Sistine to marry him by threatening her. Otherwise, he would expose Rumia's identity to everyone. As a result of the previous fight, Glenn never came to the academy. After that day, Sistine agreed to Leos's proposal. Sensing that something was off with Sistine, Rumia was so worried that she told Glenn about Sistine's marriage and asked for help solving the problem. A week later, on the wedding day, Glenn suddenly arrives to destroy the wedding and run away together. When they arrived at the city, they were attacked by a group of people addicted to angel dust. They had mutated into zombies. It reminded him of the same tragedy as Sarah's death. That's why Glenn, without hesitation, killed them all mercilessly to make Sistine terrified. Glenn also realizes the mastermind behind the incident is a former special magic division of the Imperial Court, Jadis. Everything that had happened was his plan. It was for the sake of fighting Glenn, and he aimed to have the Akashic record to rule the world. A fierce fight broke out between them after Sistine left that place. Unfortunately, the Fool's Arcana couldn't be used against him, causing Glenn to have a hard time and almost die if Sistine didn't save him. Sistine wanted Glenn to always be by her side and return to being their teacher at the Magic Academy. Those words made Glenn realize now he decided to cooperate with Sistine. Having a lot of magic energy allowed Sistine to launch continuous magic attacks, which helped Glenn beat Jadis. At the last moment, Sistine used all her power to destroy Jadis's magic. Ultimately, they won the battle. Glenn had found what he wanted to protect at that time, so he returned to the Magic Academy as a teacher and enjoyed peaceful days with his students. And that is the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and like this video, so see you in the next video.